Mission Impossible 2. This is your mission, should you choose to accept it. We're taking a second look at Mission Impossible 2, and this can't be more than the third time that I've seen this film. I know I own it somewhere on DVD. I know I do. But this has always kind of been like my least favorite Mission Impossible film. And I revisited it, and it has audio description on Paramount Plus. The film is directed by John Woo, who just came back into the spotlight this year with his first American film since Paycheck. Wow. Wow. But yeah, it's John Woo, and his new film is Silent Night, if you are interested. I don't know if it has audio description. I haven't reviewed it yet. But this film does. Yes, I've seen it before. Yes, I was able to see it visually with my eyes. Actually, it was when I was working in movie theaters. I used to have a lot more access to just watching movies all the time. Um, and it's very stylized. It basically throws out a lot of what Brian De Palma kind of set up, that they kind of bring back later on. If I'm being really honest, once Christopher McQuarrie starts getting a hold of the franchise, he kind of takes it back to what De Palma was trying to do a little bit. But John Woo kind of deviates a lot. He's got very stylized action sequences. That's what he's known for. So people love John Woo. He's kind of like a love it or hate it director. Either you like it or not. But he makes fun action movies. I don't think anybody's ever going to nominate him for an Oscar in directing, but stranger things have happened. But this has so much. It feels like somebody just took the franchise and just said screw it and just ran with something else and just made something else out of it. I don't know. It's so different. It's like when the Fast and Furious franchise made Tokyo Drift, and you're like, where did the cast go? Is there anybody in this film? No, this is just okay, well, it's a totally different film. All right. Yeah, it feels just totally different. And Tom Cruise and Ving Rhames return. We've got Anthony Hopkins is here now as sort of the head of the IMF. And we're also adding Tandy Way Newton. I will return the way to her name, since that is how she would like to be called nowadays. Back in the day when she was called Tandy Newton, she apparently had to change her name. One of those people I don't understand it. It's such a small change, really. There was somebody in a room somewhere who thought that Tandy Newton was more marketable than Tandy Way Newton. I don't understand that. It's baffling to me. I can understand if her name was just something that was like ridiculous, like off the charts, and people are like, nobody's gonna know how to spell that or pronounce it, or or you're gonna constantly have to correct people. Is this what you really want? And then she's like, no, let's do this. But really, it was just a way. That's like all you made. That's all you dropped from her name. Come on now. Like, anyway, she's in this. She's playing the female who I don't know what happens to her. What happens to her character in the course of when this film ends? It's like they do it just like they do Mission Impossible 3, where Tom Cruise is standing there at the end of the film. He's with the girl, and it looks like they're going to live happily ever after. Except obviously that doesn't happen because Tandy Way Newton is not in the rest of the franchise. Anyway, and Dougray Scott, who, if you know anything about film history, he gave up playing Wolverine to do this film, which I love. I think it's hilarious. So now nobody knows who Dougray Scott is, except like a couple people, and then everybody knows who Hugh Jackman is. So we could be in a very different world where everyone knows who Dougray Scott is. We could be living in that world, but we don't. He's that guy that was a villain in the Mission Impossible franchise. I can't believe he thought this would be the better choice. So, yeah, that's basically, those are the core main cast members. Watching this again, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to. But when you watch it right after what Brian De Palma did, which is what I did, it's very jarring. It's like wildly different. And I kind of remember the like longer hair Tom Cruise that was in this. And he kind of looked ridiculous. And he's got the damn doves in this thing. The action sequence with the doves. Props to the audio description team for following the doves. I forgot about the doves. when, when he bursts into the room and the doves fly around. I was like, wow, we haven't done doves in a while. When was the last time we did doves in a movie, in an action sequence? What was the last film that happened in? I feel like John Wick didn't use any doves. He didn't walk into a room and they were like, where these doves come from? Did they just happen to be here? Anyway, it's kind of cheesy action. It feels very dated in many ways because of the stylized action that we just don't do anymore. Especially considering John Woo didn't continue to direct films, so we didn't see an evolution of his filmmaking. He just kind of dropped off the face of the planet, and then nobody else like was trying to replicate his style. Um, it's sort of different from what happened with Robert Rodriguez, where it seems like he's lost his style. I mean, he kept making films, but I mean, I've seen his last two films, and they're nothing like the beginning of his career. Nothing like the beginning of his career. His latest Ben Affleck movie and the newest Spy Kids movie were just, I mean, compared to like El Mariachi, Desperado, these are not, no, no, no. So, um, yeah, it feels dated, and I didn't like it as much. The audio description is fine. It's there are these sequences where he goes for his super stylized action, these bike riding sequences where Ethan is shooting people off of bikes, and I kind of remember the bike leaping, the one where he he pulls the bike forward and he like flies through the air. I remember like visually remember how goofy that looked at the time. Remember, this was after Matrix, when we used to slow everything down too. We used to go into bullet time as much as humanly possible. This came out in 2000, which was not far after the Matrix, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, bullet time! Oh my god, we have to use it as much as possible." So we had all of these like slowed down shots. There's actually one. There's actually a scene in the film where it mentions that Ethan dodges a bullet, like actually like like it's out of the, it's like nobody has that ability, nobody has that power. I know it got to peak silliness with Wanted when we started curving bullets, but he just dodges it for no reason. Um, yeah, it's got all of the little goofy sequences, and I'm sure for people this is their jam. They love it, and they're like, yeah, this is where it's at. And for me, this is why we think the series has grown exponentially, and why we're so impressed with where it is because for some reason it did go down for a minute. Um, I thought, I think people think that we started at the bottom with Brian De Palma's original Mission Impossible. No, no. We actually kind of took a step down with John Woo's overly stylized Mission Impossible 2. Perhaps we didn't know it at the time because at the time he was shooting things that felt very 2000. You know, it had just turned, we were in a new millennium, and we had just figured out how to do things like bullet time, and it felt very like, ooh, this is all new and cool. Watching it 23 years later, it's not. It's just not anymore. So the performances are fine. Poor Tandy Newton just really has nothing to do in here. You know, no wonder she went on to become Tandy Way Newton and be a firehouse. And I mean, just her performance in Westworld is bar none. But here, she just kind of stands around. She's kind of pretty. That's kind of just all she has to do. Um, I think this is probably, if I could interview her, she'd probably like, yeah, this is one of the least interesting things I've done in my life. I went to some pretty locations, but I kind of just was told to just kind of look pretty and stand and stare off into space a lot and ponder life. Yeah, it's not a great start for her career, but actually she started a little bit before this, but this was kind of her big, it was a big movie, high profile role, leads to more things. Um, I think obviously for Mission Impossible completionists, they're going to continue to watch this because they don't want to go from 1 to 3. But this is my vote for the worst of the franchise. Of course, I haven't seen Dead Reckoning. That's what I'm building up to. Um, but yeah, um, audio description though, totally fine. It got all of the swooping in of things, and it tried. It can't quite capture the style though. That's the thing about the audio description with certain directors who have so much style, and in the way that they shoot things, and the camera angles, and the way that they speed around and they speed up and they slow down. Um, Even stuff like color grading, which is really heavy now. I mean, I I haven't seen a Zack Snyder movie with audio description since, other than I think like the extended Justice League cut, but I would love to see one just to see what they say about the color grading because his films are so color graded. Um, yeah, there's a lot that's missed in the style. It would be hard to talk to somebody who was congenitally blind about John Woo's style, who who had no point of reference other than what's told to them through audio description. So there is, there's a little bit of that. But as far as being able to follow the plot and the action sequences and who shot who and who died and some of the cool tricks that they have up their sleeves, yeah, it's all there. Um, but it's just not in that great of a package, and it's not aging that well. Uh, it is still incredibly interesting, and it's packed with a cast that can definitely act. Um, Anthony Hopkins just shows up, and it's amazing when Anthony Hopkins can do it with roles that are not meant for anybody. But then somebody of his caliber comes into them, and for some reason they feel like they've been elevated. Like his role really doesn't do much. He just kind of talks to Ethan, and anybody could have done that. Um, but for some reason it feels better because he's in it, and he has that ability to just swoop in, which is why a lot of crappy franchises, even like Transformers, has tried to like bring him in and be like, can he make the movie better? He can only just do so much. I mean, he can make his scenes better, but he has very little power of scenes he's not in. Um, anyway, I'm gonna try to remember a little bit of enjoying it in the time period, but at the same time, I have to recognize the fact this is not aging well. So I'm gonna give Mission Impossible 2 a B minus. Um, Looking forward to watching J.J. Abrams shake up the franchise in Mission Impossible 3. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will, I have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on X, Threads, or Instagram, MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what is audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to theadna.org. That's the adna.org. It lets you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. Anyway, that's it for me today. And I will see you guys on the other side.